Welcome back into the College Football Every Game on the Board podcast. This is section 3, the last section here, guys. We are going from Army UTSA all the way down to the end of the card, including the VIP section of FCS matchups, because we have Mid-Major Matt here. Follow him on Twitter at Mid-Major Matt. Mid-Major Matt, welcome in. How you feeling?
I like that you refer to it as the VIP section because I don't think many people ever consider the FCS to be VIP, but I like that, even if you are being sarcastic when you say that.
Well, it's VIP, no extra charge, of course. The Every Game on the Board podcast coming to you free each and every week on the WagerTalk YouTube channel, simulcast on the YouTube channel, and also wherever you're downloading your podcasts at, Sports Memo Podcast. We got 151, 152 here, Mid-Major Matt. Army versus UTSA. We're seeing Army -7 in the hook on the highway, 49.5 being the total, Matt.
This is the second straight year that Army's playing in the Alamo Dome. They lost 31-13 last year, UTSA lost 31-13 last year. They allowed 369 rushing yards to Army. Army comes in this game off of a lackluster effort. Last time out, they played the Citadel. It's a huge rivalry game. Not necessarily a rivalry game, but it's a big game for the Citadel of the FCS to play their fellow military academy. And if Citadel doesn't make as many mistakes as they did, they potentially win that game. Army came out of it 14-9 winners. They've got Mercer next week. These independent teams are going to play as many FCS schools as they can, and this year it's allowed by the NCAA. But if you look at this Army defense, they've been absolutely incredible. 63 points allowed so far this season. With regards to the quarterback situation, starting quarterback Christian Anderson practiced again yesterday and today. A decision will be made at the end of the week. The backup was okay, against UTSA, against the Citadel, Jamel Jones. You look at UTSA, they're getting so close. Last time out, they lost 27-20 at BYU. They fell 21-13 to UAB on the road after that. So they're playing better, but they've also had to step up in competition. Army's just 1-5 against the spread, the last 6 against West Point, away from West Point. Of course, they did cover that game last year in the Alamo Dome, so that trend doesn't necessarily apply here. And then with regards to UTSA, it's the quarterback situation. Frank Harris took a low hit last game, so Lowell Narcisse came in. He played really well. We don't know who's going to be the starting quarterback for UTSA. 49.5 is a low-ish number for the academies. The question is, can Army go on their clock-killing drives? If so, then that 49.5 seems a little bit low here. Lean to the under in this game, as I think that Army's defense can stifle UTSA a little bit, and Army will go with their triple option ways and go in some long drives here.
All right, good start, Matt. We got 153, 154 up next. Louisville at Notre Dame. We're seeing the Irish -16.5 or -17, 64 the total in South Bend.
Louisville was disappointing last time out. I don't know how much you watched that game. They lose that game 46-27 at Georgia Tech, and it looked like they actually gave up towards the end. I mean, it was a disappointing effort. They were neck and neck. They were punch for punch with Georgia Tech, and then all of a sudden, it kind of just the bottom fell out. And it's really hard to figure out Micah Cunningham, or however he's changed his first name about 5 times so far this season. He had a couple of touchdowns, but then he was awful the week before at Pittsburgh, so it's really hard to figure out this Louisville team. Notre Dame last week, 554 yards of offense in the win over Florida State. I tried to play a first half under in that game because I thought Notre Dame was going to be a little rusty after all that time off. They were not. They came out. Ian Book had his best performance of the season, and part of that is he's got all of his weapons back. You look at the Lindsey kid. You look at the Northwestern transfer. McKinley's healthy. So there's a bunch of guys that are healthy right now for Notre Dame. The offense is clicking on all cylinders. We've seen Louisville get gashed up and down the field here. I might actually look at the Notre Dame over on their team total. The one thing to consider here, and it's something we're going to have to watch out for as we get closer, 16-mile-an-hour winds potentially in the forecast, potential also for a little bit of rain, which would mix things up a little bit. So we'll wait till see how this forecast comes a little bit closer to game time as we're doing this on Wednesday, but just something to consider with a very windy potential in South Bend.
All right, Mid-Major Matt, we got LSU Florida up next, but that's postponed, correct?
That is postponed. It's how funny. The Florida coach wants 80,000 pack in the swamp for this game, and then, of course, they get 18 COVID tests and can't even play the game.
All right, so we'll move on here. 157, 158, North Texas at MTSU. A little bit more in your comfort zone, I think, Mid-Major Matt. -6.5 or -7. That's MTSU in Murfreesboro. 72 the total.
Well, I think we should pat each other on the back after last week. You and I both talked about that FIU Middle Tennessee State game, and we said, look, it looked really easy to take Florida International. And, of course, they were winning most of the game and then give up that late touchdown to Middle Tennessee. So we'll see how much confidence the Blue Raiders have after that game. They win 31-28. They forced 8 punts. They had 5 sacks and 7 tackles for loss. Middle Tennessee, look, we know how good Asher O'Hara is as a quarterback. He just has to find someone else to help him. North Texas was a disappointment last week. I saw a lot of sharps were on North Texas. They lose 49-21 at home to a Charlotte team that had only played a couple of games and had all the COVID issues. They've also, if you notice the trend here, they lost to Southern Miss 41-31. They lost SMU 65-35. And their win over Houston Baptist, comeback Houston Baptist, 57-31. North Texas is now 5-20 against the spread since early 2018. They have not covered their last 9 in Conference USA play. Jair Shorter, who's one of their better wide receivers, is still out for this game. We don't know if running back Oscar Adaway is going to play in this game. He is questionable. Lean to Middle Tennessee State in this game, but not with a ton of confidence because there's still some holes and there's still some faults with this Middle Tennessee State team, but they are definitely the better squad here in this contest.
Interested in your opinion here, talking about FIU. Next game up here, mid-major, Matt, 159-160, 5 p.m. kickoff here. Charlotte at home, laying -6 or -7, depending what book we're going off of. 53 being the total, FIU versus Charlotte.
See, I think I like Florida International here. My big thing that's keeping me off of Florida International is they don't know who their quarterback is. They played 3 quarterbacks again last week, and they went 8 for 21 for 58 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception in the loss to Middle Tennessee State. The defense has been okay. They lost that lead late to Middle Tennessee, but then you got a Charlotte team that's humming right now. 49-21 win at North Texas. Their 2 losses were a close one to FAU, and they lost to App State, which was week 1. So you kind of throw out that result a little bit. But Charlotte had 599 yards of total offense last week, and they actually played defense. The one thing here that I find interesting, it might be worth a look here in terms of if you play halves or quarters, Charlotte has not allowed a first quarter point yet this year. If it's some sort of, those totals won't come out until Saturday. If it's like 10.5, 13.5, 14, I might look at a first quarter under here and hope that FIU's struggles on offense continue, and maybe we can get a quick victory with a first quarter under in this game.
All right, mid-major, Matt, we got 161, 162 up next. Marshall at Louisiana Tech. Looks like the Thundering Herd, -13 in the hook on the highway, 50.5 being the total in Ruston.
So we always talk about the picks we get right, but I will say I missed completely last week on Western Kentucky against this Marshall team. I mean, I thought Western Kentucky was going to do something. I thought Marshall would be rusty after all those weeks off that they had, but Marshall came out and steamrolled and beat them 38-14. They ran for 4 touchdowns. The defense, which is leading the nation in scoring defense at 7 points per game, they're forcing turnovers. Everything is clicking right now for Marshall, and if they can run the ball, that means their redshirt freshman quarterback doesn't have to do as much, Grant Wells. So to me, that's a great recipe here. I've watched a couple of the last Louisiana Tech games. They're really close to breaking it out. They really are, but they've got to figure out the quarterback situation. Anthony has been hot and cold this season. They probably should have lost last week to Utep. They only won 21-17. They gave up a bunch of sacks in that one. The offensive line was banged up and still is banged up. They're hoping to have their 2 starting tackles for this game. Skip Holtz is a really good underdog. 20-9 as the underdog since arriving at Ruston in 2014. That's against the spread, of course. I make it a point never to lay almost 2 touchdowns on the road. I lean to Louisiana Tech here, but it's also believing in some sort of potential that they haven't really played with. I watched the game against UTEP and I watched the Houston Baptist game. The offense is there. There is some talent. Henderson and Israel's a very good backfield, but can they get anything going against a stiff Marshall defense? Lean to Louisiana Tech in this one.
Mid-major Matt on sportsmemo.com. He's 20-15, 57% his last 35 college football plays. Also killing it in the NFL props, mid-major Matt. Hats off to you. And how could the people get that?
Yeah, go to sportsmemo.com. They usually come up Saturday night. We try and beat the market because most people will take overs and stuff on Sunday morning when they have everything in front of them. So, I always recommend, 3 days, 7 days, something short. Give yourself a taste. That way you can check out and see. The plays that I make aren't for everybody. A lot of mid-major stuff and a lot of props, and there may be people who are looking to play the bigger games. That's why I always recommend 3 days, 7 days. That way you can see if I'm for you. And you can also look at the last 20 plays. You'll get an idea there. A ton of total bases, props, and strikeout, things like that. But you can find it on sportsmemo.com.
Yeah, check him out, sportsmemo.com. Of course, all the packages available there. He's also got a free play in the Braves versus the Dodgers game up there. It looks like a team total, so check that out, sportsmemo.com. Mid-Major Matt, a mainstay on the Every Game on the Board podcast. We also got Michael in the house saying he usually listens on podcasts, but joining us live. Love that, Michael. Also, Johnny Outlaw, welcome in, buddy. IQ, Dro, Corey Williams, all you guys. And Jessica in the house asking, why does part 3 come out before part 2? Well, Jessica, there's 2 factors behind that. One is the scheduling of the guests, meaning Mid-Major Matt is available at a certain time. Minty Betts is available at a certain time. Teddy Covers, whoever might be doing the podcast. Plus the fact, try to line it up with the teams, the conferences that the analysts are the most familiar with. So Mid-Major Matt obviously knows the Sun Belt, the FCS schools, the Conference USA schools more. So I try to get those games on his section and steer away from the bigger schools. So that's the reason for the scheduling the way it is, to try to get the best information out there possible. But thank you for joining us, everyone. We got 163, 164 up next, Vanderbilt, Missouri. I believe that one's postponed, right, Mid-Major Matt?
That is correct. That game has been postponed.
Okay, so we got 165, 166 up next in the SEC, the game of the century. I don't know, that term's kind of overused, but it is a big one. Number 2 versus number 3 here. Georgia at Alabama, 57 being the total. Looks like Alabama -6, -6.5. And the screen is going green and yellow here, Mid-Major Matt. There's some big news out there. Alabama's now down to -4. Nick Saban contracting COVID-19. Have you heard about this?
Yeah, Nick Saban and Byrne, the AD, both contracted COVID, and Steve Sarkisian's going to be taking care of the game plans for this one. You know Nick Saban's going to have the best setup possible. This is not going to be like a Liberty situation where Hugh Freeze was in a hospital bed doing the game. You know they're going to set up Nick Saban. I'll give a hat tip here, and you always, if you find something on Twitter, you give a tip to somebody. Chris Felica of ESPN had a stat that Alabama as a home favorite of less than 7 points is 0-4-1 under Nick Saban. The last time it happened was last year against LSU. Before that was 2011 LSU, 2010 Auburn, 2007 Georgia, and Arkansas. To me, and this is where you'll come in more, Drew, it seems like there's more value now in Alabama. If this thing's going to keep falling, you know that they're going to fix the defense, or at least they're going to try to. They're going to hammer things out. And look, I think that Lane Kiffin knew some of the stuff that was coming. When you work with a guy like that, you're going to know, especially Lane Kiffin, who was the offensive coordinator. I think if this thing keeps falling, there's a lot of value to the home team in Alabama here. But I'll let you give us your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, we got Michael asking the question, do you think Saban's positive COVID-19 test moved the line, or is it already factored? No, I think that is what's moving the line from 6.5 to 4. Would you agree with that, Mid-Major Matt?
I would guess so. I think there's a lot of people who think, a lot of the times we've seen these COVID stories, and it's with the Sun Belt and the group of 5 schools. I think some people are like, well, now wait a second. So Nick Saban's not going to be there. Like, Nick Saban's still going to be coaching this team. He's going to be relaying a lot of things, but he's just not going to be in the stadium.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope he's not in a hospital bed, Hugh Freeze style like that. That was kind of strange. But, I mean, he does have Steve Sarkisian, which I believe Steve Sarkisian is sober now. He does have head coaching experience at pretty big name programs there. So I don't know, Mid-Major Matt. I think Alabama's kind of underpriced here. Now, throwing the head coaching getting COVID-19, likely the best coach of our lifetime here in college football, I haven't factored that into my handicap. I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head here. But I will say this, Alabama, that's an interesting stat you said in terms of being under a touchdown home favorite. I still think, though, at the -4 here, you got the better quarterback. I mean, Mac Jones, I'll take over Stetson Bennett any day. And the fact, I guess, that you can throw out the stats, 21-0 against former assistants. It's going to stay 21-0, I would guess, because Nick Saban isn't going to be the head coach. But overall, I think Alabama's the side here. I mean, -4, I don't think that Saban not coaching changes it all that much. I mean, he it's not like he's the guy calling the plays anyway, Mid-Major Matt. He's more of the, kind of commander and letting his coordinators do it.
Right. That's why I think some people are overreacting to it. I mean, it's a shock when you read the story that Nick Saban has COVID. I think that's kind of the shock here. And look, it's not to say that Georgia couldn't do anything with it, but you're right. Stetson Bennett, I mean, I trust Mac Jones. He's completing 79.5% of his passes. Like, they've got all those weapons. The Mtsu kid, I mean, you add him to Waddle and everybody else there. I mean, I just think Alabama's going to play better defense. At -4, heck, I don't play SEC games a ton, but heck, at -4, I might even jump in.
All right, so looking towards Alabama there in the Saturday night game. That's 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific on CBS. We got one more FBS game here, guys. Then we're going to hit the FCS side of things. And make sure to check out Mid-Major Matt's work, sportsmemo.com. He's been good. 29-19 in his last 48 NFL props. That's 61%. He's 20-15 in his last 35 college football plays and 9-4 in his last 13 MLB props. So check him out. Sportsmemo.com also has a free play available on the Braves versus the Dodgers.
That game's going on now, so that free play won't be a help to anybody.
I was just thinking that, man. Well, you could always know what could have happened by reading it at sportsmemo.com. Southern Miss UTEP to end the FBS matchups here. Mid-Major Matt, -6, -5.5. That's Southern Miss laying in El Paso. 54 the total.
UTEP has been, I mean, we talked about it last week. 2020 UTEP is actually not a terrible football team. They lose that game to Louisiana Tech, and we talked about it. I actually think UTEP could have won. They had 13 tackles for loss. They had 4 sacks, but 2 turnovers did them in and a ton of penalties. UTEP is one of the few teams that I feel like huddles in the league. Like, they're still one of the few teams that sometimes, they don't do it always, but they don't want to go fast. They don't want to throw it every down. I quite often I would see a run, pass, offensive set for this team. They're not terrible. The line is moving towards Southern Miss, and I think a lot of people saw what they did last week. They won 41-31 at North Texas. Southern Miss's other scores, 66-24 loss to Tulane, 31-30 to Louisiana Tech, 32-21 to South Alabama. To me, I'm looking at the under here. And to see what the number is now, it's around 54.5, 55. I mean, UTEP is a slower team. Their defense is better. Their defense is improving. And if you get the wrong Jack Abraham, which we know we've seen before, where he's thrown a bunch of interceptions, we still don't know about the status of Tim Jones, the star wide receiver for Southern Miss. To me, I like the under here. And I have to go look and see what the number is. I may even look at the team total under for UTEP potentially, because they're a slower team. They're a low methodical. Heck, I might even look at the under for Southern Miss. I've got to see what those are. But to me, a game under here with a team that still huddles and doesn't want to throw it every time and doesn't mean, they don't mind running the ball quite a bit. I think that's worth a look here in this Conference USA game. And under in a Conference USA game is going to make you sweat, but I think that it's actually not a bad play here.
All right, Mid-Major Matt, guys, that does it for the FBS section of the podcast. But like we said, VIP style here. If you're into FCS college football betting, Mid-Major Matt's your guy. Follow him on Twitter at Mid-Major Matt, also sportsmemo.com. Have at it, Mid-Major Matt. What FCS plays you like him?
By the way, technically, Drew, there is one more FBS game that's way down the
Georgia
bottom.
Southern.
Exactly. Georgia Southern and UMass. Yes, exactly. 173, 174. Georgia Southern's a 31.5-point favorite. The total is 63. And remember, this is a UMass team that just a couple of weeks ago basically said, we're going to play this season, had nobody in their schedule. This game came about on October 8th, so it's the 14th. So they've had about a week and a half to prepare for the triple option. And you look at UMass's depth chart. They have 3 names at quarterback. All would be starting their very first game. Redshirt senior Mike Fallon, redshirt sophomore Josiah Johnson, freshman Will Koch. Fallon appeared in 1 game in mop-up duty, had 2 for 2 for 40 yards. One of those completions actually went to Johnson. So Josiah Johnson is a converted backup tight end that could potentially be quarterback. The team is coyingly playing who's gonna be under center. They only returned 51% of their production from last season, a decent running back and a couple of wide receivers here. But do you really want to have UMass as their very first game this season with only like 2 weeks to prepare, play the triple option of Georgia Southern? I mean, this team this team fires on all cylinders. They actually played 2 years ago. Georgia Southern won 34-13 in Statesboro. Totally different situation here. Now, the one thing I'll say here, and the reason why I'm only playing the first half or the first quarter in this game, Georgia Southern next Saturday plays Coastal Carolina. and that's bigger fish to fry here. So to me, I'm playing Georgia Southern first quarter and first half here, because I just don't think UMass is going to be ready. We actually played Georgia Southern's first half earlier in the season in a game where basically a team had a short lead-up time to play Georgia Southern. The only thing that's a concern here is Georgia Southern has had some COVID issues, and if they say Shea Wirtz or the Kennedy kid or the King kid in the backfield aren't playing, that would concern me. But UMass is just not going to be ready for a triple option that's so efficient here. That's why we're looking at the first quarter and the first half, because I think they pull the reins back mid-third quarter, fourth quarter, because they've got bigger fish to fry in Coastal Carolina up on deck.
Interesting, Matt. I like the over here, 63. We got Walt Bell calling the plays for UMass. If you don't know Walt Bell, maybe you'll remember Arkansas State back in the day with, what was his name, Freddie Knighton as the quarterback, and they used to put up monster numbers. Well, he's moved on a couple other OC positions, and now he's the head coach for UMass. Going up against Georgia Southern, I agree with you. I think Georgia Southern offensively is going to have a heyday, mainly because UMass might be the worst defensive team in the country. Add on to that, like you said, they didn't start practicing. And we've seen teams talk about not fundamentally concentrating on tackling and that hurting them. And this situation, I think, is terrible for UMass to be stopping Georgia Southern in any form or fashion. So I just think this 63 is way too low, Matt. I've already bet it, and it looks like the market's jumping on it as well with some over money.
Yeah, I think the question is going to be what's UMass contribute to it. That's my worry here in terms of, you've got these three quarterbacks. I'm guessing you'll see at least two of them. So I'm worried about what the contribution will be. And I'm worried about if Georgia Southern's got backups in late in the game when you potentially need another touchdown, will they be able to get it? I see what you're saying. I could see Georgia Southern doing most, if not all of the work here, but I'd rather not rely on it. That's why maybe you take a first half over in terms of they occasionally have a first half team total over. So maybe you look at Georgia Southern's team total in the first half. I just think we're going to get a fully focused effort that first half, and then the second half, who knows, considering, as I said, Coastal Carolina's up on deck.
All right, great stuff to finish off the FBS portion. Mid-major, Matt, we got 3 minutes, man. You want to have at the FCS?
All right, so we got a couple of games here. Eastern Kentucky is at Troy. Troy, a 4-touchdown favorite. The total is around 60, although it's not widely available, so it may not be that when the game comes out. Eastern Kentucky playing their third FBS game. They lost 59-0 to Marshall, 56-10 to West Virginia. They lost to my beloved Houston Baptist team. That was their last game back on October 3rd. The Troy side, they've just been ridiculous. Absolutely amazing here. Gunnar Watson had 4 touchdown passes, no interceptions in a bashing of Texas State last time. It's homecoming, so that's a big thing for them. Once again, I'd look first half here because they've got Georgia State next week, so therefore I'm looking at a focused effort from Troy in the first half. They should be able to get whatever they want from Eastern Kentucky here, who could struggle to move the ball. And then you've got the two just straight FCS games. Jacksonville State is a road favorite at North Alabama, around 8.5. 56 is the total right now. Jacksonville State beat Mercer last week in their home opener, 34-28. They were down 14-3 in the first quarter, outscored them 24-0 in the second quarter. We gave out Jacksonville State in the first half. Last podcast that came through. Zarek Cooper wasn't great, but they ran for over 200 yards. North Alabama lost their season opener at Liberty back on October 3rd. They had 4 trips to the red zone, 1 touchdown, 1 turnover, 2 missed field goals. They also had their quarterback knocked out of the game due to a targeting play. We'll have to find out what his status is before we can decide anything here. There will be 7,000 fans in the stands for North Alabama in this game. And then we've got the rare home and home, Drew. Central Arkansas at Missouri State. These two teams played back on September 26th. Missouri State won at Central Arkansas. Central Arkansas won at home 27-20. They scored the last 20 points in the game. Braylon Smith was terrible in that game. They are coming off a 50-27 loss at Arkansas State. Third straight road game, so they're on the road once again. Missouri State's last game was September 26th against Central Arkansas. That's their opponent. This one, they lost 27-20. As the final game of a 3-game slate, there's a chance I might be on Missouri State here. Final game of a 3-game slate. They know they should have won that game the last time these two teams played. We'll see what this number sits at. I might be interested in Missouri State plus 8.5. Bobby Petrino's first season with that team.
I like where your head's at there. In the rematch, they only lost by 7 last time. I don't know anything about either of these two teams, but profile-wise, it sets up nicely.
Plus, Bobby Petrino's had a couple weeks since then. He's got some things up his sleeve. It's something I might consider. Once again, it's not widely available, so when it is available, the number might be completely different, and I could be way off here. But so for the people who just say that they want the picks, I think Missouri State plus 8.5 is my lean once it becomes more widely available, and then Georgia Southern first quarter and first half, and then I'm looking at the UTEP under as well. Those are my 4 favorite plays of the podcast for those who just want the picks.
Yeah, and it is widely enough available. You can go on record with that because Bet Online and Offshore has it up, and the Westgate here in Vegas has it up. So you get the legal book and the offshore book. So it's widely available enough to go on record on the pod, Matt.
The only worry is with COVID stuff, Drew. That's the one thing that keeps you off it. You want to wait, especially in the FCS. I hearken all the way back to that first game, the Austin Peay game. You want to wait as long as possible, realizing you may lose a key number because you don't want to lock in a number, Drew, at this 8.5 and then find out Missouri State, like half their team has COVID and you're screwed anyway. So I would rather wait a little bit, get as much information as possible. But if by Friday and Saturday we find nothing out, then I lean to Missouri State plus the 8.5.
In mid-major, Matt, special here. Question for the people watching live. Any quick thoughts on tonight's Sun Belt action? Coastal Carolina, Louisiana, Lafayette.
I'm stunned on the line movement here. I leaned. I didn't play anything in this game because I didn't love anything. It's one of those things where there's the only game plan. It's a Sun Belt game, so you feel like you have to play it. I leaned to Coastal plus 9.5. Don't love it. I scoured the internet for Twitter things with regards to COVID. I don't see anything with regards to that. And I actually leaned to the under, and I found a stat basically from the Action Network that says that they basically Coastal averages a play every 30 seconds. Because I had somebody tweet me, they were like, Coastal's a really fast offense. Well, they're actually not. They average a play every 30 seconds, and then Lafayette averaged a play every 26-ish seconds. So to me, it's a lean to the under and it's a lean to Coastal Carolina, but I don't like anything. So therefore, it's only if you really want to play this game tonight. Don't blame me if it loses because I'm not giving it out as an official play.
All right. He's mid-major, Matt. Check him out. sportsmemo.com. He's been hot. Check him out. Both NFL props, college football. 20 and 15 his last 35. So both NFL, college football, and MLB beating the markets of recent. Check him out. 3-day, 7-day, 30-day. All access passes at sportsmemo.com. Guys in the chat box, thanks for chiming in. Johnny, we got minty bets coming up for the closer edition of the NFL Every Game on the Board podcast. Then we're bringing Jeff from Oskheim Sports in to finish off the college football Every Game on the Board podcast.